go over a full body strength training workout. I'm going to start with the foam roller or a lacrosse ball, or we also have what is called the orb ball. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to get started with my hips. I'm going to place the ball right on top of my butt cheek, and then on that same side, that foot is going to cross over the opposite thigh, and then I'm going to tilt into that ball, which is the orb ball. You can do this with a foam roller. Lacrosse ball might be a little bit too much, but this is the orb ball, and I go in a circular fashion, up and down, side to side, try to find some areas of tension, and sometimes I like to straighten my leg out as well, go side to side and up and down. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get my other side. Again, this can be done with the foam roller or lacrosse ball if you're trying to progress it. This is called the orb ball, so if you don't have one of these, I would just advise using foam roller. Let's grab a mosquito. Alright. So again, circular fashion, in and around that hip. Okay, what we're doing is assessing the hip, the tissue quality of that hip. Is it tight? Is it not tight? Or are we perceiving it to be tight? Or are we not perceiving it to be tight? We also might mean dense. Or is it dense? Is it dense tissue? Is it sensitive tissue? So all these things kind of mean the same thing. We don't want to push into any excruciating pain. We want to make sure it's tolerable, but not too much. And if you don't feel anything, then it's probably one, you're on either a bone or you're not actually pushing into the direct muscle. So you should feel a sensation in the muscle. This should also help you realize where your muscles are. So that's important for understanding when you're working out where your muscles are and how they should feel, pre-workout and post-workout. So by assessing this tissue quality right now, I can focus maybe less or more on this hip in my future workout. Without this feedback from this foam roller or lacrosse ball or the orb, what I'm using, then I might not have that information. So the more information I get before my strength workout or my game or whatever it is, more information I have about my body, more information I can use to create better circumstances for myself, depending on my present level. Okay, so right now I'm getting my calf, but as you see, I'm also kind of stretching out my back hip and internal hip rotation, which you can do while you're doing these things. I'm in the 90-90 position, getting the outside of my calf up through the upper end of my gastroc. Okay. You don't have to do it like this. I could do it just like this. I could go like this. Just understand there's many different ways that you can roll the body. Okay, or push or release muscles with either self-myofascial release or implementations or having outside forces, like someone else pushing into you. Okay. This is I'm getting the outside of my calf here, which we call the peroneal muscles, which seeps up into the anterior tibialis. Yeah, and I can bring that opposite leg back, bend the knee if I want to get a little bit more hip. Also helps me stretch this hamstring while I'm here. Alright, so there's my calves. I can also get my hamstrings on the outside of my hamstrings, right in the middle of my hamstring. This is usually better seated on a bench, but I can kind of make it work with this. Okay, right where the hamstring connects underneath the glute. Just feeling those muscles and how they feel. Switching side. The hamstring you're not going to feel as much as the other muscles unless you are doing this seated. Okay, like on a bench. But again, you're going to get at least a little bit of pressure in that if all you have is the ground. Alright, so for the adductors or the lower back, what I'm going to do is softer the better for your low back. Is put it by my low back and then just relax here and then just let my hips go to one side or my knees go to one side, and I should feel it in my one side of my lower back, and then go over to the other side. And if you want to make this more progressive, or if you want more pressure, or if you feel a better angle here, you can bring one foot underneath. Okay, we don't need to rotate super far for this one, and we don't need to go on the middle of the spine. So stay on one side or the other. Then when you go to the upper back, you need to sit up first. Put the roller from the mid spine all the way up to the shoulders, and then right on the scapula, so those wing bones, right where the shoulder blades are. From here, I'm going to lift my back up, tee out my arms, and then just roll just on my shoulder blades. So in this 4 inches of space up and down. So from like below my neck to above my mid back. This tiny little space here, I can bring my hands together. Okay, I can go from one side of my scapula to the other side. Feeling the muscles in the rotator cuff. And then I can also bring my elbows together, go into extension, then flexion, and then trying to feel those rhomboids with my elbows together in this upper back. I can lean into one rhomboid or the other, one scapula or the other, and then that will lead to getting my lats. Which from here, I'm going to drape one arm over the roller. Knees are stacked, feet are together. Put it right underneath the armpit so that when you roll, you can push into your chest. And then back to your armpit, and then back to your chest. You should feel the muscles, okay, in this area here. It connects the back of the shoulder into your mid-back. So we have our lats here that we're pushing into. Trying to keep that elbow straight. And then we can roll onto the chest, back to the lat. And then we're going to bend the elbow, externally rotate the shoulder, so like we're about to throw. And then from here, we're going to internally rotate the shoulder. Externally rotate. Should feel the muscle pushing into the roller. And then internally rotate. Externally rotate. And then internally rotate. Okay? Then I can just push into the posterior shoulder, roll up and down. I can target my lats even more, or my serratus anterior and chest muscles, and pecs. Alright, and then a switch side. Stacking those feet and knees, elbow underneath. Roll from chest to upper back, right in that armpit area. You should feel all those muscles that connect basically in that shoulder joint from the lats. All those muscles from the upper back basically go in the back of that shoulder area. There's a lot of muscles that interconnect there. So you're gonna feel a lot of different pressures there. We're gonna roll from from chest to back. And then again, bending the elbow, going from external rotation to internal rotation, back and forth here. I should feel that muscle pop into the roller as I externally rotate. Okay, and then again, if I need any more spaces, I'll go back in there. I may even work more on the posterior deltoid or just that spot in between. Okay, next is going to be the adductors. I'm going to lay beside the roller, abduct, lift that knee up, point that toe down as I roll right next to the knee. Keep that knee straight. You're almost making a 90-degree angle here with your legs. Then from here, just relax the foot to the ground, internally rotate, and then relax. Internally rotate, you'll feel the pressure in the glute, in the vastus medius there. Then we'll go to the mid-thigh, and roll side to side here. Again, internally rotate, and then closest to the hip bone that you can. You're gonna feel it moving into the quad here, which is fine, or you'll feel it in those tendons that connect those adductors into the hip bone. From here, I'm going to move to my stomach with my forearms, almost like I'm in a plank position, and I'm going to move from the knee to the hip. And I'm going to point that toe down, find a spot maybe 4 inches above the knee, point the toe, relax, circle the ankle, find a new spot, and then switch side. So again, other side, lay beside the roller. Lift one leg up, straighten the knee. Roll right next to the knee to start. Point that toe down. And bend the knee softly. Roll side to side. Go for more mid-thigh. Hold here, and then from here, relax the foot down, rotate that hip, relax, rotate, extend the knee, and then moving from roller, or from hip to upper thigh. Small space here, turn onto the stomach, roll from hip bone to the knee, making a saw action with the body. Nice and slow, nice and controlled. And then finding a spot above the knee. Holding here. Circling that ankle. Finding a new spot. And then relax. Okay? So that would be a good foam rolling session. We can also get the TFL right here and the glute med. But maybe in another video. Alright, so now we're going to get into our stretching. We'll use this roller to help us stretch for some balance, but we're going to do some stretches on a mat, starting with the hip flexor stretch. So a hip flexor stretch, we're going to get in that kneeling position. The kneeling position, just starting with 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. We're going to make sure that that back toe is tucked into the ground. Okay? So we got that back toe tucked. We want to always think dorsiflexion with that ankle, and with that big toe we want in extension as well. From here, we want both knees at 90 degrees. I got my front knee, my front hip, and then my back hip, my back knee. This back hip both back hips. Actually, I want to squeeze both glutes, so I'm going to go from an anterior pelvic tilt to your posterior pelvic tilt. So thrust those hips, squeezing those glutes. You'll feel that hip flexor turn on here, which runs from your lower spine all the way down your leg here. You feel that stretch as you squeeze and maybe hinge forward. You might feel it a little more. And then relax that squeeze. Squeeze again. Relax. Squeeze. Relax. And then go a little further. Use your roller for support if you need to. Or if you got 2 dowels, that also helps as well. And then find end range. Breathe into that. And then switch side. Again, squeeze both glutes so you feel that in that back hip flexor. Should go along that front of that thigh. Starting from the hip. Squeezing the glutes, you should feel it fire right away because it's in a lengthened position. Then from here, hinging forward, squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax, squeeze, and relax. Find your end range, hold here, breathe into that, and then come back to kneeling. Next is the adductor rock. So I like a padded mat that is long so you can get wide. We're going to go hands and knees, spread those knees out, point those toes. Toes will touch so we can sink back into those hips. From here, I'm just going to grip the ground with my knees. I should have no pain here. If there's pain, then this might be too much for you. From here, what I'm going to do is abduct or lift one leg, and straighten the knee out, and I'm going to rock back and sink into this adductor stretch here. Breathe into that. I can go forward and exhale on my way back, or I can hold into this stretch. And we're trying to get about 30 seconds each side for each stretch. Starting wide, abduct one foot, point that back toe so I can sit back into that hip with my back almost straight here. Outside of that foot is down if possible. Okay, and that is the adductor rock. The next is the hip rotator with a reach, or I'll just do a posterior hip rock, starting in the hands and knees position. From here, I'm going to step one leg all the way back. That front knee and foot, I'm going to swivel inward, so that foot goes underneath my opposite knee. And then I'm going to open up my arm to the outside, same side as that hip. I'm going to rock toward the outside of that back hip. I can bend the knee a little bit more and sink back into this hip as well. But what I'm going to do is find an area of tightness or tension or a stretching feeling. I'm going to hold here. Or I can rock in and out of that position. So you can rock into that position or stretch and hold that position. And then switching side. This is the posterior hip rock, which you can make a stretch or a kinetic stretch where you're moving in and out of this position. Circles are fine. Alright, so next is going to be the V-stance reach. You can push into a higher mat, a pad, yoga blocks, anything, or the flat ground. We're gonna straddle the mat or yoga blocks, pushing them into the ground. And then from here, we'll push one hand down, one hand is gonna wrap around the ribs as I rotate, look up toward the ceiling. Hold and breathe. Then we're gonna bring one hand behind the back of the head. On that same side, open it up, breathe, and hold. And then switching side, about 3 inhales in each position, 3 exhales in each position. Good. All right. Next is the toe touch progression. So we're just going to do some toe touching exercises. Starting with the feet together, hand over hand. I'm going to bend over, reach and touch the pad, come back up. Bend over, reach and touch the pad, come back up. Move the pad, reach and touch the toes, come back up. Touch the toes, come back up. Now toes elevated, come back up. Toes elevated, come back up, and then heels elevated. One more. And up. And so that is a toe touch progression. All right. Next is going to be a calf stretch. Okay, we're going to do a couple calf stretches. We'll show you downward dog first. Hands and knees. Downward dog, push the hips up high, bring the knees off the ground. Try to push the head through the shoulders. Then from here, you can bend one knee at a time, focusing on one leg at a time, or both legs at a time. Breathe and hold about 30 seconds or 3 to 5 inhales and exhales. The next calf stretch is going to be a standing wall calf stretch. Going to push into a barrier, step 1 foot back, stretch that back calf out. And then switch side. Breathe into that. And done. Good. All right. Now we're going to go into our dynamic stretch. All right. Our dynamic stretch is going to be today some lateral movements. All right. And we have some linear as well. Actually, mostly lateral. First is the lateral march. So lateral march. Let's see if this helps. Put it back on. So the lateral march, I'm going to sidestep or march sideways, just like that. And I'm throwing that opposite arm down for my lateral march, okay? So now that we're on to our dynamic exercise portion or dynamic stretching portion, we're going to start moving multi-joints fast. Some water. Alright, here we go. Maybe this light will help. Alright, here we go. So, lateral march, starting opposite arm, opposite leg. I'm going to march in place. And then I'm just going to travel to the right or to the left. And then travel the opposite way. Try to get those knees up. Back is straight. Trying to go opposite arm, opposite leg. Next is going to be the pogo, lateral pogo. So pogo jumps, jumping on 2 feet continuously. Buoyant, soft landings. Okay, going 6 down, 6 back, 6 down, 6 back. Next is gonna be the skip. So start with our march, and then just add that skip. Throw those arms down, like you're about to hammer something into the wall behind you. Keeping that back straight. Okay, next is your shuffle. So when I'm shuffling, if I'm moving this way, I'm using that hip. If I'm moving this way, I'm moving the opposite hip. So when I sit up, wide feet, pushing out, using that hip. I'm going this way, using this hip, the outside. Using the inside foot to really maintain my balance and help me move to the side. Next is our karaoke. Cross behind, cross in front, cross behind, cross in front. Okay. Alright, so that is our second to last one. Next to last is our scissors. Find a line. Set one foot in front of the line, 1 foot behind, staggered stance, opposite arm forward, then switch. All the way down, all the way back. Okay, that is the scissors lateral side step. So now, complete about 10 seconds of each movement, which really gets your heart rate up. Mine is as high as it's been for the entire workout, which is good because we're trying to warm the body, increase heart rate, and warm the muscles. Preparing our tissue for the exercise, all right? So next is gonna be our power. So we have our med ball side toss, med ball overhead throw, and then a lateral bound, okay? So for our med ball side toss, what we're going to do is side facing the target. Target is a wall, hopefully it's brick. In this case I have my box set up, pushing into a squat rack, which helps. So what we're going to do is I'm going to rotate, using rotational force with a light implement, the med ball. Feet are shoulder width apart, maybe a little wider. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up, pretending that I'm looking at my target like someone's about to throw a baseball at me and I'm holding on to my bat. So I'm going to get that elbow up, and instead of driving through like a baseball, I'm going to kind of scoop the ball because I'm not holding on to a bat, so I have to think of how am I going to propel this ball. And that's going to be a scoop action. So it's going to go from a high elbow, scoop throw, I'm going to follow through. My feet are going to pivot, so I'm going to put more weight on that back foot and then more weight on the front foot as I rotate. I'm going to go for 5 on each side, okay? Now one side might be a little easier than the other, that's totally fine. So this is the med ball rotational throw. Here we go. Alright, med ball rotational throw. Feet are about shoulder width apart. Look at your target, elbow up like you're about to bat, and then scoop throw. Okay. Next exercise is the overhead med ball slam. Okay. Want a little bit wider of a stance. We're not bending our knees too much. We're just throwing as hard as we can and then catching the ball. Okay. It's gonna just look like this. Just like that. Okay. We don't need to emphasize the squat or anything else. Alright. Want a good foot position. We don't need to go on our toes and then slam on our heels, although we can. We're gonna go down and up. Okay. Trying to keep the body looking straight in line. We don't need to flex all the way down. So this is the overhead throw. Overhead slam. Here we go. Now we're gonna go through the lateral bound. Okay, the lateral bound, think about a strip or an island that you're jumping over, and you're thinking of a rainbow or an arc that you're trying to make over this land. So we're going from up and over, and we're trying to land on one foot. So we're going from right foot to left foot, right foot, stance, jump, left knee is slightly bent, that knee is going to drive upward. As we drive upward, opposite arm goes forward. Okay, ipsilateral hand goes back as I propel myself across, landing on one foot stably. We'll do 5 on each side. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Okay, so that's the lateral bound. All right, so we're gonna perform one more set and then get into our strength training. So, if you have questions, let me know. All right, here we go. All right, so med ball rotational slam. Feet are shoulder width apart, hands holding on to the ball, side facing the wall or target, elbow up like you're about to hit a baseball. You're going to scoop and toss this ball toward your object as hard as you can. 5 on each side. Here we go. Switch. Overhead slam. Overhead slam, feet are wide, wider than shoulders. Slam the ball into the ground, catch it, repeat. Okay. Lateral bound, jumping over a strip or an island, arching or rainbowing over the object, 1 foot landing, 5 on each side. Stick those landings. All right, so we're now done with our dynamic warm-up. Now we're gonna move to our strength training. Fun. All right, so for this set, we have a tri-set of 3 exercises performed in this circuit. So this circuit is going to have 3 exercises, lower body, upper body, and core. We're going to start with a goblet. We're going to start with a sumo squat, and then we're going to move into a 1 arm overhead half kneeling press, and then move into a high plank shoulder tap. All right, so first thing we're going to do is the goblet, or the,
are we gonna hold this? Just looks like a landmine sumo squat, so I guess we'll be able to hold it goblet style. Okay, so we're gonna go goblet, sumo squat, feet are out, toes are out, knees are out, holding the bell on the sternum and clavicle nice and tight. Knees go out as you squat down, and then stand back up nice and tall. Okay, that's the sumo squat with a goblet style hold. Next is our half kneeling, one arm shoulder press. Okay, so one knee on the pad. The leg that's not on the pad, we're going to use that same sided arm. Tuck that back toe. From here, we're going to use the opposite hand and the foot that's forward here. So if our right foot is forward, we're using our left arm. Squeeze the opposite hand, press overhead. Going for 8 on each side. Switch side. Okay, last exercise in that bundle is the high plank shoulder taps. So what we're gonna do is get in a push-up position. Feet are close together, hands are over the shoulders. We're gonna reach across to our shoulder, tap, and then come back down, tap, and then come back down. Notice that when I do this, nothing else moves except my hand, okay? So no rotation in the hips. Pretend there's a hot cup of coffee on your back and you'll spill it if your hips rotate. So we're gonna, you can exhale as you do it, trying to counter the rotation as you touch those shoulders. Okay, going for 8 on each side. Here we go. And that is the high plank shoulder tap. Whew. Do it right. And in that little series we just did, then you'll definitely be feeling it after. All right, so that is our little conglomerate of exercises. We call it tricep. We're gonna perform that 2 more times, and then we're gonna move to another tricep, or another pod of exercises, another group of exercises. And so try to group these exercises together. That way we have something to do in between sets, so we're not just sitting around. And let's move, and we also know there's a lot of other benefits. Goblet squat, sumo squat. What we're gonna do, press the top of the bell into the clavicle, bottom of the bell into the bottom of the sternum. Squat down, knees out, feet out, down. We could tap our glutes to something here, but I think we kind of max out at the end. Okay. Next is the 1 arm overhead shoulder press. Half kneeling position. Whatever foot is forward, you're going to use the opposite arm to press. Press overhead. 8 on each side. 3. Okay, if you can't do that without pain, lower the weight. Make sure you're not arching your back. Your ribs are down. So we're not going like this, we're like this. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay. And then the last exercise in the series is the shoulder plank, or the high plank shoulder tap. Woo. Alright. Let's see what that goblet squat would look like with an box. Be a little bit more proper. Get some water. See, once you get these pods over with, it goes quick. So, got our goblet squat, box squat, feet are wide, goblet position, toes are out, stand up tall, tap and go. Okay, there's your goblet squat. Sumo squat. Okay. Got right foot forward. Means left hand is pressing. Ribs are down. Opposite arm is out. Fist is clasped. We're grasping. Create more radiation. Switch. High plank, shoulder tap. Next is our hip lift, shoulder elevated, hip lift, push up, and TRX row. Go ahead and move to our shoulder elevated or bench supported hip lift. Hands are free, elbows and shoulders are pushing into the bench. From here, knees are bent about 90 degrees, and then we're going to extend our hips, squeezing our glutes, holding for about a second, and then dropping down nice and controlled, tapping the ground and coming back up. Perform 8 sets or 8 reps here. That's how it's going to look with 2 feet, but today we're going to use 1. Push that thigh into the sandbag, try to pinch it into the belly as you're pushing with the opposite leg. Tough. Those are tough. Okay, next is gonna be a push-up. What we're gonna do is hands, we're gonna start underneath the shoulders, feet and knees on the ground to start. Then we're gonna push up into our high plank position. We're gonna lower down, but we don't want our knees out and we don't want them too far in. We want them out and in just enough, making like an arrow, okay? Using a pad for something to touch down, for consistency, keeping the body straight. It's like an isometric plank on the way down and up. And we're gonna go for 8 reps. Here we go. Next exercise is going to be TRX row. Okay, what we're going to do here, set up. I'm going to give the feet some support. I'm not going to get all the way horizontal like I'd like to be, but if you can, your feet on a box, like 12-inch box, that'd be great. It's probably a regression from that. I'm going to push my feet into the box. Lean back like a board, pull, hold, slowly return. Going for 8. Woo. So that is another series of 3 exercises. Notice we went lower body, upper body, and actually 2 upper body, right? But the push up and row is a lot of core, so you can take that for what it's worth. All right, so I'm going to show you the last 3 series, and then I'm going to tell you what my conditioning program is before we head out. So if you want to repeat that next set 2 more times, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to show you the last series, get you on your way. So the last series, going to be alternate W pull down. So we want to be making a W with the bands. We're going to pull down and then we're going to alternate. Okay? If you have cable. If you have bands, same thing. One arm pulls, one arm reaches overhead. The next exercise is going to be a stability ball rollout. You can use an ab wheel if you're advanced, or a stability ball, exercise ball. I'm going to show you that. After that is a tall kneeling, forward facing wall slide for shoulder mobility, and then we're going to get into our conditioning. So, our first exercise, like I said, is the alternate W pull down. I'll bring you in a little bit so you can see. As you see, I have for the alternating W pull down, I have these bands set up, or you can use cables that are on the high end and outside. What we're going to do is go to the half kneeling or the kneeling position. I'm going to reach across the bands. I'm going to pull down. If I need more resistance, I'm going to reach higher and pull down. Hold here. Keep my ribs down. Reach up. Reach down with one arm. Reach up. Reach down. Now the opposite arm is going to be creating an isometric contraction or hold while the other arm is working. Okay, so that would be the W pull down with the band version. You can also do this with cable. Okay, next exercise is going to be the stability ball rollout. So for the stability ball rollout, you're going to stand in, for the stability ball rollout, you're going to start in the kneeling position behind the ball. Fingertips are strong and hands are strong because we need to create stability with this ball as we lean forward. So we're gonna push into the ball. We should feel our core create an isometric contraction. We don't want to extend, we don't want our body to sag down like this, and we don't want to keep our butt up in the air. So we're gonna reach out, fall out with the ball. Going for 8 reps. Alright, so that's the stability ball rollout, which is an anti-extension core exercise. Alright, so for the forward facing tall kneeling wall slide, I'm going to get close to the wall, ribs are down, chin is in, starting W, take an inhale, exhale. Okay. Also turn around, cross the legs. Might be a little harder, back is flat. Half feeling thoracic rotation. And switching side. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to tell you is the conditioning aspect if you're still here. Alright, so for conditioning, option 1, 1 mile as fast as you can, write your average on the bike, or a tempo run 40 to 50 yards 8 times with double the rest as it took you to get there, okay? Alright, so those would be some conditioning things I would do after this workout. Hopefully you gained some knowledge today. And as always, ask any questions you need. Thanks.